Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this episode. We have Laura Healey for you guys. I know I'm going to learn so much. I know I'm going to learn so much. So that's why I'm excited about this. I'm sure some of our runners that listen are just going to be like, maybe this is new, not news to them. It's news to me for sure. But we have Laura Healey for you guys. As you know, probably from our intro, we're going to dive into all things footwear. But first, before you guys get to know too much about Laura, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
And
thank you for having me.
we are so excited. But let's go into some two truths and a lie.
Perfect. Okay, I've got them ready.
All right.
So, my first one is that I won my areas and went to what we called regionals in elementary school for the standing long jump event in track and field.
Okay.
I had a cake business. So actually I still kind of do have a cake business selling cakes.
Okay.
And I ran on my high school's 4x100 meter team.
Okay. I mean, I feel like all these could be possible.
Totally.
With what I read bio-wise in your interests, I feel like the running thing is something in your arena, whether it's, running and jumping or if it's 100-meter stuff, cake business. I feel like got to get those carbs for all the running. So
yeah, it gave you quite the large spread of activities.
Okay. Elementary school standing long jump. You kind of look tall on Zoom. I feel like long jumpers might be tall. I'm going to go with maybe the 4x100. I don't know. What do you think, Amanda?
That's kind of what I was going with too, thinking like maybe there's like she ran on a different team or something like that.
Or different.
Because I feel like side hustle cake biz, I could see it.
Yeah.
It's like out there enough to be like true.
Yeah.
And I love the elementary school standing long jump.
Yeah. That's true. I could see it. I could see it for Laura. Okay. Well, don't tell us the answer. We will reveal it and possibly a cake business at the end of the episode here today. So Laura, what got you interested in this field of research you were in? Tell the listeners what you do, how you got here.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a manager of footwear innovation, and I'm mainly a biomechanist, or like a sports biomechanist. And so I got into it in my undergrad. I went into kinesiology, and I really liked sports and performance. So I thought kin would be a cool way to go. And then just really liked biomechanics. I thought it was so fascinating being able to use like tools and understanding of our body on how to make us run faster, jump higher, all that stuff. Was a bit of like maybe a physics or like math nerd. So it all kind of fit together for me.
Cool.
And then, I kind of discovered this niche of footwear, biomechanics, that was also kind of presented to me in my undergrad. And I just thought it was, the coolest thing that I could use like science to make shoes that make people improve their performance. So kind of pursued it. After that, I went and did a master's in biomechanics, and then did some training at the University of Massachusetts under Dr. Roger Hockheimer, who is also a well-known biomechanist for footwear. And now I am at Puma running a footwear lab, watching a lot of people run all day and diving into the nerdy physics of shoes.
So neat. And so, I mean, I'm not sure if our listeners know this, but also just so you know, Laura, I come from a mountain biking background and like trail running recreationally. So running shoes, I know I'm familiar obviously with brand name Puma, that kind of stuff, but I couldn't tell you the brand name of a certain running shoe that's like all the hype. I've heard conversations around this carbon fiber shoe business. So we can talk about that maybe.
Yes.
But with your grad school stuff, the biomechanics, was that like solely on, is that solely like lower body, like running specific stuff? Or do you get to look at like different sports or like, tell us about that?
Yeah. So in grad school, I took a bit of a shift. I knew I wanted to do footwear biomechanics, but I went to a school and I did more what we would call like ergonomics, which is a little bit more like how humans interact with different things, a little more like workforce kind of thing. So I actually did my master's on military helmets, which was very different. But it was very cool because it was kind of a similar thing where I was understanding like a different product, like a helmet, and how a person, how it fits with the person, how like the forces that go from the helmet to the person, how that influences neck injuries. So it was a different part of the body and a different piece of equipment, but kind of understanding performance of helicopter pilots and their helmets, which
so interesting.
Yeah, kind of gave me an interesting view, and then applied similar kind of things to now understanding shoes, different part of the body, but similar principles, I guess, across that.
Yeah. And so I think that was something we kind of came across when we were like researching you was it like a night vision goggle study or something like that we saw?
Yes. Yeah, that was good research. So there's basically this a large range of injuries with helicopter pilots because the night vision goggles are very, very heavy on the front of their helmets. So we kind of had a grant to delve into how we can redesign the helmet, redistribute the weight, that kind of thing to basically prevent so many neck injuries in these pilots. So yeah.
Goodness. I mean, that has to be something where it's like there was such a high prevalence to like actually make it become a study. I would imagine, right? Like, wow.
Yeah. It turns out it's quite a big, very high prevalence.
Yeah.
In the military. So yeah, we had military funding. They were like looking into how they could reduce injury risk basically in their pilot population, which was really cool. So I kind of finished the project. I was kind of the first step in this multi-year grant. So the project, I believe, is still probably wrapping up around this time. It kind of continued after I was there, but it was very interesting masters for sure.
Yeah. So with something like that, and maybe this translates too with the footwear stuff, is like, are you looking at ways for the actual device itself to change to fit the human better? Or is there suggestions for the human, like strengthening your neck muscles or something? I don't know. Like, is there things like that as well that are suggested with situations like this?
Yeah, for sure. I think strengthening the neck, all these problems are definitely multifaceted. So I think there's a number of ways you could approach them, and one of them is probably strengthening. My master's specifically was more focused on just the helmet. So people go into these different situations, like leaning out of the helicopter and stuff like that. And we couldn't change what the pilots were doing, and we couldn't change the weight of the goggles themselves. So we kind of had those restraints, and then we were kind of given the task to just adjust the helmet. But as you said, similar to running, there's so many different things that can affect it, but often like we're just given, this is the shoe, like we can change the shoe. I can't change how people run.
Right.
So yeah, these problems and with injury and all this, there's so many factors, which make them very, very difficult problems, especially when you can just influence one. But yeah, kind of a fun challenge at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of on that note, can you tell us what a do you say biomechanist or biomechanist, or how say it?
I would say biomechanist.
Mechanist.
Okay. Study of biomechanics.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of both.
It's the study of biomechanics. So can you maybe explain that? What like a little bit more of like what is the study of biomechanics, maybe for like elementary grade level?
For sure. So very, very broadly, it's basically someone that specializes in human movement. And I guess more specifically, it's kind of understanding our anatomy and biology, and then applying principles of like physics and engineering to understand like the forces that act on our body and how our body produces force. Kind of at the same time.
Okay. And so like with the shoe stuff, I imagine, are you you're trying to improve that individual's performance, but is it also looking at areas where like energy is being wasted and to minimize that energy waste, or is that part of the like thought process when you guys are doing that stuff too?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of when we look at, so as I said, I don't have as much influence, obviously working footwear on someone's form, not necessarily a running coach, but when we look at the
Right.
shoes, that's, you kind of alluded to these carbon shoes. That's kind of the one thing that we have noticed and we try to do. So we try to get less energy wasted in the shoes and have as much energy returned to the runner with every step, to essentially make their net energy use as minimal as possible as they're running.
So interesting. Have you seen any other tools that are doing a similar thing for an athlete in sport?
I mean, I was thinking earlier, we always kind of allude the super shoes to the Speedo swimsuit that got banned a few years ago. That's like a classic kind of comparison to something that made people a lot faster. So that was one thing. Obviously, they were able to engineer. I don't know all the details of how it worked. I think it was something about like reducing the flow. I think it made them more buoyant or something, so they didn't have to hold themselves up as much. So anyways, it's ways of reducing energy to make you faster, I think.
Yeah.
Or use less energy, which in turn, if you can use less energy, then you can go faster for the same amount of energy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the concept that we work under. If we make people use less energy, then they can run at a faster speed with kind of the same energy that they've always had.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the one example, but I don't know if too many, I mean, running's, there's kind of only the shoes, right? So that's kind of the one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Speedo suit was so effective that it got banned.
Yes. Yeah. There were a bunch of records broken in it.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even remember. Sorry, people listening probably are like yelling that they know way more about this than I do.
Good. I didn't even hear about this.
I can't even remember which Olympics, but yeah, it came out and it was,
wow.
Yeah, such an effective suit that it was just breaking all the records and they ended up banning it.
Is that something like that was kind of one of our questions too with like the shoes too, is like, do you foresee there eventually in the future becoming a situation where maybe some of these things are banned or they're like so effective that they start to become banned? Or do you try and moderate how effective, like trying to find that middle point of like, we don't want our shoe to be too effective so we get banned, but like still give somebody a boost? Or how do you monitor that?
Yeah, I feel like I've opened a can of worms here. Yes, that's definitely been an ongoing discussion ever since the first kind of what we would call super shoe came out with the Nike 4%. I think there have been kind of two camps on it's making people faster. And at this point, since 2016, the shoe has been, I think 2016, 2018, the shoe came out. And there is like pretty concrete evidence that race times have been improving. Like there have been lots of huge studies done, just even looking at Strava data across recreational runners and all the records broken from professional runners. So I would say there's like fairly clear evidence that we are improving race times with these shoes. So there's kind of two camps on whether we should like completely ban them or not. I personally, working in footwear, I think it's so cool. That we can kind of see these benefits, and the benefits from the shoes, it is still, while we do see these benefits, it's still a bit hard to tease out, right? Like the people are still doing so much work and training is becoming more and more educated about training and nutrition. And there's so many other factors that also go into why we might see race times improving. So yeah, I hope not to. So there are limits now on shoes. So we can't have a stack height over 40 millimeters.
Oh, interesting.
So like the foam of the shoe can't be more than 40 millimeters and for road running, and there can only be one carbon fiber plate in the shoe.
Interesting.
So World Athletics has kind of put general guidelines to stay within.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how now we're working within the guidelines to try and continue to get every bit of savings out.
Yeah. So is that because a shoe stack height greater than 40 is performance optimizing or like
Yeah, I think the verdict is still out. There was a very quick probably reaction to these shoes and wanting to put some limits on it because of all the controversy.
Mhm.
I've seen some research and we've done some research. I don't know. I don't think the limit is like infinite. Like
Mhm.
there's going to become a time where it's going to be too tall and that is now going to be prohibitive.
Yeah.
So that exact sweet spot, whether it's 40, 50, or 30,
Mhm.
I don't think has been defined. And there's, again, so many factors, right? Like
Mhm.
person that's running, their type of running, their weight, and so many different things would probably change what that ideal stack height is for them.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know if it is exactly 40
Mhm.
because it would probably become as I said, self-limiting at some point.
Mhm.
But those are
Interesting.
the limits that are there right now.
So when you say stack height, and again, I'm a shoe newbie. When you say stack height, are we talking like heel to like what your heel hits in the shoe to the bottom of the tread, kind of like is the thickness there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the
Okay.
thickness of the foam in the heel. So if you like cut the shoe
Okay.
in half, basically how tall you are, I guess you could think of it.
How much height? Okay. Yeah.
So the height of the bottom.
Interesting. And does that have something to do with the stack height in the front and how that tapers to the stack height in the back under the heel and how that tapers to the stack height in the front? Is there benefit to having any fall there, or what is that with your shoe research? What does that tell us?
Yeah. So we would call that the drop would be like
Okay.
the difference between the rear foot and the forefoot stack height. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I think again, it depends. So that kind of differs from shoe to shoe. It relatively remains the same, probably like 4 to maybe 8 millimeters.
Oh, okay.
But like a drop between the heel and the toe is pretty common for racing shoes. I think the biggest thing between also the heel and the forefoot is what we would call the rocker. So that's like how much, like the roll kind of the front of the shoe.
Yeah.
So you might notice that if you look at a lot of these new super shoes, they're very like, they have a very high rocker. So they come up again at the toe, like
I see.
a curve in the front. And we've seen that's kind of been one of the big benefits of these new shoes, what we call super shoes. And there seems to be something there about kind of the roll while you're running and the helping you propel forwards. So that's definitely been something that's newer in this new wave of shoes, I would say, than historically being more the outsole kind of being more flat on the ground.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. It's not like we're not sponsored by anybody, but Vans, like I think of Vans, they're like just like a flat shoe. I don't know about their running shoes. I just picture they're like standard Vans. But so kind of with that and with your research, tell us like what is a day in the life of Laura like?
Day in the life. No day is the same, I'll say. But yeah, I think one of the coolest parts of my job. So I run our biomechanics research lab here at Puma. So we have a lab where we have all sorts of runners come in. We have a treadmill, 3D motion capture,
cool,
and a metabolic cart. So kind of the main measure, I guess, that we do in the lab is running economy. So maybe people are familiar with that. That's kind of this 4% number. When I said a shoe is 4%, it makes you 4% more efficient. So we can basically measure when someone's running their VO2 at a steady state and measure their running economy. And then between shoes, we can measure how much energy they're using in each shoe and see how much more efficient they are in one than the other.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a bit of a misconception is that percent is how much faster you'll be, which isn't true. It's related to that for sure. But it depends on kind of your actual savings in time will depend on how fast you're running and how far you're running and stuff like that. But yeah, we measure economy. So yes, a lot of my day is spent measuring efficiency of shoes, in the lab measuring what we call biomechanics. So motion capture, forces under people's feet, all that kind of stuff.
So neat. So
Yeah. So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that part, and then working with athletes a lot, which is one of my other favorite parts.
Yeah. Are there a lot of like professional athletes, amateur, or is there ever like recreational runners kind of coming in too?
Yeah, so in the lab, I would say we have quite the range. A lot of them are just runners from around the city. Thankfully, in Boston, being in a big running city, it's very easy to get lots of very fast, just everyday runners. So that's exciting. And then, we try and get some of our elites in and test them. And then also test, depending on the type of shoe, we also will kind of pick the runners. So we do a lot of really high performance shoes, and then also some maybe more casual training shoes, everyday shoes. So nice to have our pick of so many runners in the city.
And so you're saying you will measure running economy in different types of shoes, not just like the super dupers shoes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I would consider myself definitely more of a recreational. I don't run necessarily for speed, just kind of, just for fun and health and enjoyment. But I also want a comfortable shoe that's going to be fun and make my runs a little bit easier. And I feel like that's a big population as well. So we do running economy for even our casual shoes, and what type of shoe, if you're running a bit slower, might be really comfortable and also make your runs a little easier and more enjoyable.
That's awesome. And so just circling back quickly to the running economy metric that you're looking at, is that saying that they're utilizing 4% less energy? Would you say? Is that a way to interpret it? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you broke that down too, with like the speed and like kind of misconceptions about what the 4% means too, because I'm sure people have seen that all over social media. So tell us a little bit about the carbon shoe stuff. Is that something that you're looking into? Does Puma have a carbon shoe? Tell us about that.
Yes. Yeah, we have quite a few carbon shoes now. And I think, they're very prevalent across every brand. So we call them super shoes, is this kind of thing we're talking about. So I guess to be defined as a super shoe, I think there's three kind of important parts. One of them is that it has a curved carbon fiber plate, which maybe I'll explain in a second. It has a new, like, very responsive and resilient foam. And then it has this rocker that I talked about before. So this kind of dramatic upswing at the toe. So the carbon fiber plates are embedded in the shoes and are kind of shaped like a spoon. So they kind of go hand in hand with this rocker that I was talking about. They kind of come down and help keep that rocker in place and help you roll forwards as well. And then this new foam, which is another really big advancement that's not talked about as much as the plate, because the plate seems kind of new and crazy, but these newer foams, I think, are also doing wonders for people running economy. So they're very, very compliant, which means they're very squishy, but they also have a very high energy return. So with each step, you're storing and getting energy back. So kind of comes back to your original thing about how you're losing less energy with every step. People might feel the shoes are like bouncier and that type of thing.
That's nice though. That's nice though.
I know. I go back to running in like older shoes and I'm like, I feel like I'm just running on.
Like probably feels like running on like pavement all the time if you don't run on pavement. So with the carbon plate, so when you say it's shaped like a spoon, is it like a spoon facing up, or is it a spoon facing down that we're getting that effect?
Yeah, it's a spoon facing up. So you can think about the top, like the handle of the spoon almost being against your heel. And then as it goes to your midfoot, it kind of scoops down towards the ground. And maybe comes up a little bit again towards your toes to get that rocker shape.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of flat and then scoops down under your
Okay. And so
toes.
walk me through the benefit of this like scooped shape, like as someone's foot is landing. And for our listeners, they can watch the video recording because maybe she'll do some like hand stuff with her hands, but walk us through best as you can, via audio for our listeners.
It's a bit of a tricky question because I will say the thing with the super shoes is we actually don't know that much. We know a lot. We do know a lot, but there are a lot of unknowns about how these things are working. And then in particular, how they work together. So yeah, there's a lot of parts that we don't know. There's some things, I would say it's almost more speculated about how the plate works. I think one
crazy
thing,
if it was placebo the whole time.
Yeah, it would be crazy. I'm fairly confident it's not based on testing, but
at this point,
yeah. But yeah, I think there's some different thoughts. One of them is that the plate kind of compresses the foam, especially in the heel. So you step down and it gives you this more even compression of the foam, which would allow you to almost utilize the foam more. So that's kind of one thought.
Interesting.
Another thing is that as you kind of roll forwards, you flex your toes, right? You kind of like flex your toes, and then you push off again, but you don't really unflex your toes until you're off. So you're doing you're kind of losing some energy when you flex your toes that you never get back. So you're potentially, saving a little bit of energy there. I did do a research study when I was at the University of Massachusetts where we kind of cut up a shoe with a carbon fiber plate to see, we were really interested in like, what does the carbon fiber plate do? So we sliced it up so that the shoe was really flexible. You can think of like a Nike Free maybe. And we compared that to an intact plate. And we didn't really see many differences, which was very shocking. Because we were expecting to see big differences. So that still raised, I think, a lot of questions about the role of the plate and the role of the stiffening element of it. The plate was still in the shoe. So it could still maybe keep this rocker intact a bit. It was still interacting with the foam. So
that is very interesting.
It's not super clear. But there's some thoughts about your how it affects like your ankle joint, and maybe you do less work at your ankle because you kind of have this plate at an optimal spot to push off on. So that's really maybe not that satisfying an answer. I'm sorry.
No worries. Like I kind of, does the carbon fiber have like any give, do you think, at all? Like when it is intact?
Yeah, and there's definitely different shoes have different stiffnesses. So some shoes, and especially across different brands, right? Some have stiffer and some have less stiff plates. There's some thoughts about maybe if you're stronger or like bigger, heavier, you can utilize a stiffer plate more than someone that's like maybe lighter and it's too stiff for them. It's still not super clear. So there's some different like thoughts, but there's nothing I would say that like concretely shows any of those like scientifically yet.
Interesting. There's gonna be like a shoe one day where people can like slide in different thickness carbon fiber plates based on their body weight or something.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so if someone like myself never wore a carbon plate shoe, is there things that I should know before I pick out a pair of shoes, or like that I should expect like when I go on my first run?
I think everyone that I've talked to the first time they run in the shoes, they just feel like they're running, or they look down at their watch and they're running so much faster than they thought they were running.
Cool.
Which is kind of cool. So again, there's so many different shoes now, and nobody really, obviously we came out with this 4%, or I came out with a 4% shoe, and like nobody's really talked about exact numbers since. I think everything is so close now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say like which, if like who is better and which. I would say it comes down to like a comfort thing. Mainly shoes all fit different. That's also why we have many different carbon fiber shoes in our lineup, so that you can like pick which one feels most comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's more, probably more of like a comfort thing, and to try them out, see if you can take them for a run first.
Yeah. And do you suggest people like, are these like something like an everyday running shoe, or are people only using these like in races or for like
that's
a race?
Also a big conversation right now, I think, across like all coaches and runners, is how much should you use them? And that's a really interesting question, because I don't think we know yet because they haven't been out for that long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of anecdotal things about, perhaps if you're always running in a carbon fiber plated shoe, you might weaken your foot muscles, and that could lead to injury. Which I could understand maybe the theory there. But the other flip side of that, which we've heard, is that after people run in super shoes, they feel so much better. Their muscles are less fatigued or less damaged, so they run a lot more. So perhaps you're running a lot more, so you are getting the same strengthening benefits because you're running more than you would have in these other shoes.
Right.
So I think kind of with anything, I would suggest doing a mix. So a lot of people will like mix it up for their maybe super long runs. They'll choose a super shoe if they know they're going for a long time, but maybe if they're doing more of like shorter distance or just a workout, then they would pick just maybe like a daily trainer, like an unplated shoe. I think with most things, if you're switching up your shoes, you're kind of slightly changing little things, maybe little muscles that you're using or something. You're going to probably set yourself up best for success.
Yeah. Interesting. And I imagine like the plated shoes can come in road running and trail running versions of shoes these days, or?
Yeah, that's another good question. Heavy hitters. Yeah. So the trail running is kind of being explored now, I would say. We don't see as much, we haven't seen as many carbon fiber plates in the trail world. We're starting to see some have just come out. It's an interesting one because the ground is a lot more uneven. So there's a lot of concern or like care that goes into making sure they're stable. And if you have this very stiff shoe, is that going to cause problems? If I know Laura Healey's group has been doing some interesting stuff, and lots of other groups as well, about like the angle, like how steep you're running, and perhaps if it's so steep that you can't bend your toes enough, that could also be a problem for getting grip. So there's a lot more considerations, I would say, for trail running, but you can find some trail running shoes. And I think the thing that I love about road running is it seems very simple. There's one road, you run straight. It's a very controlled environment.
I feel like you're definitely a track athlete. No.
As soon as we start to talk about the trail, like what I call a trail could be completely different to what you call a trail, like in Boston versus Europe versus Boulder versus wherever. So that's where things start to get murky again. On trails, is like what you need in a shoe could be more specific to your trail. Is it a dirt road or is it a mountain? So
it's where those controllable factors for research just get like thrown. You can't. It makes it that much harder.
We go in a lot of circles talking about like, but then what if this? So it's
that is all the different considerations. But all that it makes sense, right? I mean, all those things you have to think about with a shoe, and like you're saying, the toe angle and the steepness, and goodness, that would be really interesting to kind of learn more about over time. I'm sure we'll see it. I did want to ask you about the foam. Is this something that is it specific to Puma shoes or other brands using this specific foam? Does it have a name? Like, should people be looking for this type of foam when they go out and purchase a shoe?
Yeah, so it's not, Puma has what we call nitro foam. So it's our super foam.
Awesome.
It's like a nitrogen infused foam.
Mm.
But what you would, I think the general term that maybe listeners have heard is PBA or Pebax foam. So yeah, there used to be a TPU foam. And so there's a lot of foams that I also have learned about since starting at Puma. But in general, the process is called like a supercritical process. So you would take your raw material and then inject it with nitrogen air, and then it kind of puffs up. And we find with that, we get very, very good properties. And as I said, the properties that you're kind of looking for, or that you are looking for in those foams, is something that's squishy. So you have compression, it's very soft, but then it also bounces back with a lot of force. So you're not losing as much energy with every step.
Interesting. Is it nitrogen too? I thought I heard nitrogen like doesn't expand or contract with different temperatures as much as oxygen does. Is that right?
Could be. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Fact check. So
we'll check that.
That would be interesting. It makes me think of this is so stupid. It makes me think of Fast and the Furious nitrous.
Yeah, exactly.
Fast 10 just came out for our listeners. So I keep seeing all the ads. So Fast and the Furious shoe. So kind of with that, I definitely want to get to our listener questions. But I also would love to hear your suggestions for maybe a new person, newish to road running. What would be your suggested Puma shoe for them?
Yeah, my suggested Puma shoe would probably be, so if you're looking for a super shoe, whatever displayed in foam and rocker, I would consider the Deviate Nitro 2. Okay. So that's what we would call like it's like a training shoe, but still a super shoe. So it's not going to be as stiff or aggressive, I would say, as we also have like our Deviate Elite, which is what our elites run in. But yeah, the Deviate Nitro is one of my favorite shoes. It's very versatile, all around. That would be mine.
Awesome.
I like to run that. Yeah.
So is the Elite one a little bit stiffer, you're saying, than the 8?
Yeah, the Elite one has our Nitro Elite foam. So it's it's actually, I think it's slightly squishier even, but a little bit higher energy return. And it's a bit stiffer with the plate.
Okay.
So
cool. Awesome. And then any suggested shoe for our trail runners in the Puma world?
Trail runners.
Is that maybe you're not, it sounds like maybe you're not a trail runner. So maybe, but if
I'm
you
not as much of a trail runner. We have some new ones coming out. I don't want to say one that I'm not allowed to say. I'm trying to think. Okay. I'm not on our inline team. I know we have the Voyage, which I really like. As I said, I'm not as much of a trail runner. I'm more of a hiker, but I really like the Voyage to hike and do like small trail runs in. And then I know we have some really exciting ones coming out.
Great.
So I don't want to say it, but if you look on the website soon.
We'll link the website so people can keep checking it in the future when those come out. Okay, so I will dive into some of our listener questions. So I think some of these we might have covered. Suggested shoe for trail runner versus road runner, which I think we just kind of dove into. Opinion on barefoot shoes.
Barefoot shoes. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think I haven't delved as much into that. I think there could be a time and a place. I know there was a barefoot kind of craze a few years ago that fell off rather quickly.
Yeah.
And I know I think a lot of the sentiments that came out of that are also very true. So just be very careful in picking up too quickly, because the muscles you use are a lot different. And I think the rates that people getting injured was quite high, but there are a number of people that I know that do run in barefoot shoes and it works really well for them.
Mhm.
So I think if it works for you, then that's great. There are a lot of other options now, I think, that maybe aren't totally barefoot, but kind of are between. We have a
Mhm.
shoe called the Liberate,
Mm.
which has a fairly low stack height, so not a ton of foam,
Mhm.
but it is still a squishy super foam.
Mm.
And so I think that one nicely toes the line of you're still really feeling the ground and
Yeah.
having that sensation that a lot of people like, but you're still kind of getting the benefits of having some cushioning there.
Yeah. So is that kind of, so what our next question is, things to consider before trying a zero drop shoe. Is that kind of, is that what you're talking about? Is
Yeah,
like,
so yeah, our Liberate isn't a zero drop,
mm,
but there are some brands like Ultra, I think mainly does zero or only does
mm,
zero drop shoes. Zero drop shoes can be a bit tough on your Achilles because you
mm,
come, if you think about like your foot being slightly bent up,
mm,
and then it coming all the way down. So your calf and Achilles, that would be what I would kind of be wary
yeah.
of. And again, if you have never run in zero drop shoes, maybe ease into it, and
Mhm.
just check in and make sure you're not doing too much at once.
Yeah.
But a lot of people they do find the benefits and enjoy running in them.
Awesome. And then let's see, your next question says, what's one of the most important factors when deciding on a shoe type for trail running?
For trail running. Yeah, I think, as I said, what you should probably ask yourself is the type of trails that you're running on. So again, if you're mainly running on like not a super, super technical trail, maybe like a super shoe is great. I know people that love to run in the Deviate Elites on like trails or gravel or things like that, and they work really well for them. If you're on a very technical trail, then maybe consider just what type of shoe it is. Maybe you want a little more flexibility so that you can kind of grab those rocks and not worry about your shoe being too stiff.
Yeah.
And having like a really good lockdown. So yeah, maybe just consider, and like, again, the type of lugs you need, right? Like a lot of people can run on average trails with road shoes, but once you start to get more technical, maybe you need more of an outsole that's gonna be a bit more grippy for that terrain.
Did you just call them lugs? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah,
the lugs.
Tell us what lugs are.
Like the
Nodules on the
outsole.
bottom?
Yeah, the little parts
Okay.
that stick out.
Gotcha.
So there's some with like, I think if it's like super muddy, you're gonna want something that's gonna kind of penetrate the ground more with the lugs.
Interesting. I always just called them like grippiness. So the scientific
too.
term is lugs for our shoe geeks out there. Okay, and then let's see. Do those running store foot devices that measure for custom insoles really work, or is it a pure marketing ploy?
Ooh, that's a good question. I know people that swear by them and like really good runners that work here that will never run without their insoles. But there's also, I think, lots of people that probably don't need them. So yeah, maybe if you think you need them, you could seek like a second opinion. Than just like the running, because I know a lot of them will do like a foot scan and it kind of auto generates something for you. So my first thing would be like, you probably don't need it unless there is a reason that you have. And then in which case, I think, they can definitely help.
Yeah, cool. This one says, should ultra zealots boycott the new 4mm smiley face? Do you know what that means?
I don't.
Amanda, do you know what that means?
So Ultra, which is like Laura mentioned, is known for their zero drop shoes. They just launched a 4mm drop road running shoe.
Yes.
It's been like, I've just seen it all on Instagram or whatever. And it's funny to me too, because it's a road running shoe, but they're a trail running company. And it's all these trail runners who are like, I got my new thing. I mean, everybody runs them both, I'm sure, but.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have seen that actually. We were talking about it. We're like, oh, they came out with their first zero drop. Because a lot of people that like are true ultra ride or dies, it's because of that zero drop. So it's interesting they went away from that for the road running. But I don't know, maybe give it a try.
Yeah, interesting.
Give the drop a try. But yeah.
Got to test it out. Everybody's different. And then I don't think this, I'm not going to ask you this last one because I think it was a wrong person question. It has to do with lab testing. So I'm not going to gastrointestinal lab testing. So
but
I'm not going to hurt you with that one and try and get your brain racked. So I think that was all our listener questions. Where can people follow you and find you?
Yes. So that's a good question. You can follow me on LinkedIn, which is really lame. I don't really use it.
Not lame.
I'm struggling because I had Twitter that was more of my like biomechanics Twitter, but ever since the whole not Twitter thing, I haven't really been engaging. So if you are still on Twitter, maybe I'll retweet things every once in a while. My username is Laura Healey 13. I'll send it to you guys. You can post it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't really been on it as much. So those are the two main spots.
All right. LinkedIn.
Sure.
Well, we will link those and then shoe related stuff. And then we'll put the website links so people can check for the potential new shoes coming out. But I did also want to go back to your 2 truths and a lie reveal. So let's see, you won the elementary standing long jump, have a cake business, and then you ran on high school 4x100 meter track. We said, we both said that one was a lie, right? The last one. Which one was your lie, Laura?
You guys were right.
Yay! All right. Tell us about this cake business.
Yeah, super random. I like one summer didn't have a summer job and thought I would start making cakes, and I had a cake business. And now I mainly do it with friends and family. But shameless plug. I make lots of cakes.
Do you sell your cakes on?
Not really anymore. I make them for friends and family. I don't know the last time I actually sold one, but it's more of a de-stressing hobby.
I have it. Yeah, that's great. We all need those. What's your favorite type of cake to make?
I like really decorating them. So the flavor isn't as like, I like chocolate cake personally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to spend more time icing it and making it look cool. So
fun. Yeah. It's like, an art, like crafting kind of like thing. Yeah. Getting that side out, you have the science, math, physics brain going on, and you need some like art incorporation. I totally get that.
Just turn it off.
Yes. And then tell us about the long jump win.
Yeah. In elementary school, I was really good at the standing long jump, and I was really excited. And then I found out it's not a real sport.
You can't do the running one.
I was devastated. I was just good at it's a broad jump. It's like a fitness test. I don't know why they had it and made me believe that it was like a real thing. But they had regionals and everything. It was like fully part of track and field.
Wow.
And then I found out it wasn't real. So
do you know how far you jumped?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. No, it probably wasn't that impressive. But
you said it was elementary.
Yeah, my coworkers still make fun of me because I told them that was my peak of track and field. I was on the 4x100 meter team in elementary school as well. But my high school didn't actually have a track and field team, which is crazy.
Oh wow.
So,
that is.
So I couldn't pursue my standing long jump career either way. But yeah, I left it. I left it there.
Yeah. Are you tall? Like,
sort of 5'9".
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like what I can see on Zoom. You seem tall. I'm getting a tall vibe. So that definitely helps give you some hops. Awesome. Well, this has been so fun and very informative. And I apologize for our listeners for my Fast and the Furious reference. If we can take that out. But this has been so fun, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us. I need to go check out some shoes.
Yes.
I'm so excited. And if you ever get into the cycling shoe world, I want to know all about it. And then, this has been fantastic. I'm excited to go dig into some shoe store business soon here. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.